What's up, everybody? I know it's been a while, been very busy, and haven't had time to put out these videos, but we are back with another tier list. This time, talking about one of the most popular and influential rock bands of the past 40 years, Red Hot Chili Peppers. But I'm doing this tier list with a twist. I'm only going to be talking about the albums that they have done with John Frusciante. Is that how you pronounce his last name? I'm probably gonna butcher it throughout the whole video. But John Frusciante or Frusciante, whatever. And I'm doing this because Red Hot Chili Peppers have been back in the news. They're saying that they're gonna be releasing a new album, and of course, John is coming back to the band for the third time, believe it or not. And I'm excited. Love the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Most of their work I'm a fan of. There's a couple of albums in their discography that I'm kind of like, kind of skip. And listen, no offense to the other Chili Peppers guitarists, but to me, John Frusciante is their best guitarist, and whenever he's in the band, they seem to be more cohesive. They seem to produce their most, and maybe it's a coincidence or not, but like they just seem to be the Chili Peppers that I know them to be. They just have stronger melodies, stronger guitar work, stronger songwriting. To me, like I wish that John was part of this band more, so that we had more albums featuring him, because he's an amazing guitar player. He's probably in my personal top 10. And he's gotten, as he's gotten older, he's definitely become a lot more flashier. And you'll hear that in the videos I talk about their albums. But man, yes, they've gone through their battles, personal battles, professional battles. But I'm very glad that John is back in the band again. So we're gonna talk about these albums and rate them from best to worst. But if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy this type of videos, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button down below. If you're a return subscriber, hit the notification bell to be alerted for new content. Alright, so the first one we're going to talk about is Mother's Milk, which came out in 1989. Now, this is John Frusciante's first album with the band, replacing deceased guitarist Hillel Slovak, who died of a heroin overdose the year before. And a lot of people don't remember, John Frusciante was only 19 when he joined the band, so he was a young little pup. But man, what talent he had at 19 years old. And really, the Chili Peppers at this time were kind of like an underground funk rock band. That kind of scene was gaining traction as the 80s wore on, even though Chili Peppers came out in like the early 80s. But bands like Fishbone, Faith No More, they were starting to gain traction in the late 80s because funk metal and metal kind of itself became more fractured. Subgenres started to emerge. Even like I talked in one of the videos about thrash metal, that started to gain huge traction as the 80s wore on, then into the early 90s, where really metal just became a free-for-all. I wouldn't exactly classify Chili Peppers as a metal band. They kind of flirt with that genre, but to me, they're like a pop rock band. They focus more on hooks and melodies and all that stuff. But Mother's Milk, to me, you can kind of see where they were going in the 90s. This is the first album for them to go gold. They started having their music videos played on MTV. They became, obviously, Anthony Kiedis, Flea, those guys have become, as much as they're musicians, they are personalities. And people fell in love with their personalities as well. And people just loved the fact that this band was, they just seemed to like crave improvisation, especially in the guitar work and Flea's bass work. But yeah, this is when they really started to like create less of jam songs and more pop songs. So songs like "Knock Me Down," a cover of "Higher Ground," which gave them a lot of traction on MTV. Their tribute song to Magic Johnson, aptly titled "Magic Johnson." Yeah, Chili Peppers are huge Los Angeles Lakers fans. Um, and yeah, so this came at a perfect time for the band. They're also flirting with psychedelia and at this point, which is something that they would do for the rest of their careers. Um, I think it's a fine album. It really kind of set the template for what they were doing on their next album, as we're going to talk about soon. But there's some good cuts here, as I said, and I think that Chili Peppers were really finding their identity. Their first couple of albums, had a cult fan base, but this one was like, all right, let's put them on the map, and this built momentum for them to get, a major record label deal with Warner Brothers, which put them in more eyes in the public. So I'll put this in the B tier. But this will be nothing compared to their next album, Blood Sugar Sex Magic. For most fans, this is their best album, their most critically acclaimed album. I mean, there are so many hits on this album. It's crazy. But Chili Peppers released this album September 24th, 1991. Same day, believe it or not, as Nirvana's Nevermind and A Tribe Called Quest's Low End Theory. I mean, imagine going to the record store and having to choose between these three albums. It's insane. Now, Nirvana blew up way sooner than the Chili Peppers. Really didn't take the Chili Peppers until almost a year after this album before they became like huge. And that was due to the song Under the Bridge, which was a surprise success. Took many by surprise, even the band itself. Yeah, Chili Peppers, they would do these type of ballads throughout the rest of their careers, but it shows a surprising amount of depth in Kiedis's, not only his singing, but his songwriting, talking about doing drugs under the bridge, and it was very autobiographical. And, at this point, Kiedis was sober, and, he lost his friend, Hillel, to heroin, which prompted him to stop doing drugs. But, man, this song just was like a hurricane that just, like, took over radio. Of course, I wasn't alive at that time, but you can only imagine that a song like this personal, this deep, just resonating with tons of people. So a lot of people who didn't really know about the Chili Peppers before, this was the song that really gained them a huge audience, an audience that honestly would never fade away, to be honest. But there's other great songs here. Of course, "Give It Away" was a huge song as well. One of my favorite Chili Peppers songs, probably their signature song, to be honest. There's other songs here. "The Power of Equality," the opening song here is just amazing. "If You Have to Ask," with Frusciante having an amazing guitar solo that you even hear in the song. The band members are like clapping it up, and they're like whooping it up as like audience members in the studio. It's great. I also love the fact that the band's chemistry here is on point. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there's a great documentary behind the making of this album. I think it's called Funky Monks. And you see Rick Rubin, who produced this album, and it's a great documentary. Check it out. But it's interesting to see how the band with Rick Rubin, who they work with many times, really they pushed each other to be better. And Rick Rubin at this point was not doing, he was known for producing Beastie Boys and Run DMC, but now he's moving on to rock, producing Johnny Cash. But what can I say? I mean, this album is incredible. Funk rock, great, funk metal, even some rap. It's incredible. Even "Breaking the Girl," which is kind of like a psychedelic record, and that amazing kind of drum solo where they use they actually use like trash cans, and it kind of reminds me of this may predate that musical Stomp, where they kind of use like different instruments and outdoor objects to create this kind of like unique percussive sound. Incredible album. Gotta put it in the S tier. So after this album became a platinum success, it made and it's very like typical like rock band stuff where it's like, oh, the band, starts on the underground, they get successful, and then obviously now you see the money come in, the tensions are coming in as well, and John Frusciante became very uncomfortable with the band's success, even sabotaging some of their live shows, and it got to a point where him and Kiedis just came to a head, and they couldn't work with each other anymore, so they fired Frusciante, and they brought in John Marshall and the rest of the tour. And then for the next album, they had famed guitars from Jane's Addiction, Dave Navarro, and they released an album called One Hot Minute, which had like mixed critical reception. And after things didn't work out with Dave Navarro and drugs came back, Kiedis resumed his drug addiction and a whole bunch of drama. Frusciante came back into the band, and they released Californication, which is one of many comeback albums that this band has made, and it came out in 1999, almost 10 years after Mother's Milk came out. And Californication kind of reintroduced the Chili Peppers to a new generation. Songs like Scar Tissue, even the Around the World, which is an incredible opening cut, where it's just like Keith is just yelling at the top of his lungs, but man, that song is funky as hell. Probably one of the most funkier songs that the band's ever did. Songs like Other Side, the Californication, the title track, amazing guitar solo for Frusciante. But yeah, Californication, after the mixed reception of One Hot Minute, gained them a huge pop audience. This is probably one of their more popular songs. Like I said, Scar Tissue was a top 10 hit. I think Californication was the band, you hear that term, their most mature effort on many publications, but this really was them at their most mature at this point. They were no longer, 20-somethings talking about girls and weed and all that stuff. Like, they went through some real shit. And when you hear songs like Scar Tissue, it's like, yeah, this band has gone through a lot, and, kind of like the metaphor of like how, the tensions between Frusciante and the band early in the 90s, they healed, they're back together again. They had some scars, but, they're going to be all right. So, yeah, although this album to me is not as, groundbreaking as Blood Sugar Sex Magik, it has some great songs here that I enjoy, and I think it's one of their most stronger albums. So I'm going to put this, and plus I love the fucking album cover as well. And yeah, I'm going to put this in the A tier. Californication, if you haven't checked this out, it's a great album. It actually kind of brought that term into the popular lexicon. So, alright, we're going to talk about By the Way, which came out in 2002. A little bit of a longer album than Californication, but this album was a lot more different from their previous albums. They kind of abandoned the funk rock hip hop sound that they are used to, and they kind of like delved straight into psychedelia and pop music, and that kind of divided some fans. Fans who were used to their band's old stuff didn't really like this change, while they're kind of appreciated them taking more risk. Frusciante took a lot more in the songwriting approach. He became a lot more dominant, which, if you heard past interviews, Flea did not like this at all. If we're talking about pecking order, Kiedis is obviously number 1, and Flea is number 2, and Frusciante is 3, and Chad Smith is 4. And, that's the dynamic that, that's what it is. That's how we see them, right? And like I said, Flea, talk about what you want about his bass playing. He is a personality, and he's the number 2 of the band. And to see Frusciante kind of take more of the lead in this album, kind of pissed off Flea a little bit, and Flea was almost gonna leave the band. He's like, I'm not used to this. Um, and with all that being said, I mean, Frusciante said this was the happiest he's ever been with the band. Even Kiedis said that making this album was an incredible experience. So, how does the music sound? I think it's okay. I think it's a little bit too long. Like I said, it's not a sound that I'm used to hearing with the band. I kind of like when the band does like funky, metalized stuff. When they do their pop thing, it's okay. It's not bad, but it's just like it's very different from what I'm used to hearing. But I think it's a solid effort. Frusciante obviously is growing as a musician, and I just think that they really didn't find a way to kind of like it's kind of like the Beatles, right? Where George Harrison was trying to get the lead spot, and Lennon and McCartney like, whoa, let's calm down a little bit. It's not what we're used to. But it really wasn't until Abbey Road until they like kind of found a way, or White Album. But they were pissed off at each other. But Abbey Road is when they really found a way to like have the three of them find equal ground. So, by the way, I think it's okay. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. And the next one, Stadium Arcadium, which came out in 2006. It's a double album. And man, this album was huge. I remember teenagers like embracing Chili Peppers. Like this album, Chili Peppers have been around for almost 30 years at this point, and they were as popular in 2006 as they were in 1991. And it was due to the fact of the song Danny California, a top 5 Chili Peppers song in my opinion, and probably my favorite Frusciante's guitar solo. And the music video is pretty fun. They're like going through eras and stuff like that. They're having a fun time, and I think that song kind of was a perfect reflection of the band at this time. They've been around for almost 30 years, and it just really found them like in this perfect groove. No pun intended. Like I said, by the way, reflected Frusciante and Flea. There's some tension there, but this album, they really found a way for everybody to get like equal ground, and maybe it's because it is a double album. There's a lot more songs here, and there's a lot more potential to kind of let more just experiment and let other band members get more involved. As is in the case with double albums, you have a lot more space to take chances. But the band's obviously going back to their traditional funk rock sound, which a lot of people enjoyed. So I think with all that being said, band scored their first #1 album. They won Grammy Award for Best Rock Album. Just everybody fell over the moon when this album came out. As it stands now, 15 years later, I do think that the critical reception has kind of faded a little bit. But like I said, at this point, Frusciante was, initially influenced by kind of like punk rock and heavy metal in the late 80s and early 90s, but now he was kind of showcasing a more Jimmy Page, like he's being more flashy, longer guitar solos, something that he hadn't really done since Blood Sugar. And like I said, with Danny California, that guy just like that guitar solo is like incredible. But he was becoming more influenced by different types of sounds. Like I read interviews around this time that he was being influenced by, of course, you expect Jimmy Page, Tony Iommi, Jimi Hendrix, but he was also being influenced by, R&B and hip hop, like being influenced by Wu-Tang Clan and Brandy, which is shocking when I read that. But where you hear it all over his guitar playing, and it just shows how much he has grown as a musician. And the band is like, I just think that when they're together, they're just like the supernova. They just cannot be condensed. And yes, because of the double album, there's gonna be some filler, obviously, but there's some great songs here. Desecration Smiles, Snow, um, Wet Sand. Yeah, obviously Danny California, the opening song here. Had this album been tighter, I probably would have put it higher in my list. I probably would have put it A tier, but I think it's an okay album. I'm gonna put it in the B tier, okay, but definitely a high mark in their discography. And I think, in my opinion, uh, really garnered them the third wind or whatever. It really bought them time in terms of like popularity and really immerse them into, because there's bands that they have their initial wave of popularity and then they kind of fade out, and then they have that comeback album and it really sustains their kind of like prestige throughout the rest of their career. I mean, you can even look at their contemporaries like Green Day, where they kind of fell off a little bit and then they came back American Idiot, and then it's like, oh, this band's back and everybody's going crazy over them, and the new generation and the old generation, they could go to the shows. And that's how I kind of felt with this album. Chili Peppers had their old fans, but then they had like this wave of new fans, younger fans that were just adored by them. Yeah, so that is my tier list. Red Hot Chili Peppers albums with John Frusciante. I don't know how many times I'm going to butcher his last name, but tell me what you think in the comments section below. What are some of your favorite Chili Peppers albums? Are you excited for this new album that's about to come out? Just to kind of do like a coda of everything. Frusciante left the band 2009, in a more, friendly status. He went to do on his own stuff. Chili Peppers released a couple more albums in the 2010s. In my opinion, these albums are okay. Like I said, I just think that when John is with the group, they just produce their best work. And now that he's coming back with the band, I'm very excited of what they can come up next. But yeah, YouTube recommends these two reviews. Check out this one. I did a whole bunch of tier list videos, so check out this playlist of tier list videos. Sorry for the huge hiatus. Just been busy with a lot of work and stuff. So we're trying to be more frequent with these videos. Love you guys. Till next time. Peace.